In Shizume, Makoto Su, rocking Asian bangs from the early 90s, also known as the Red King, calmly walks through the streets with his group, Homura. As they go along, the members eventually split up to do their own tasks, and the only one who stays by his side is a girl named Anakushina. At a nearby hotel, 3 Homura members wait outside a suite,
ready to strike, and one of them pretends to be the Bang Bros pizza delivery guy to trick the people inside into opening the door.
As soon as the door opens, the group rushes in and attacks the surprised men. Everything goes according to plan, and Kusanagi contacts Yada to let him know it's his turn, and Yada, waiting on the roof of another building, smiles. Yada barges into the suit, where 3 men are talking. One of them is on the phone, angrily ordering someone to find a certain group. The other 2 are discussing a recent robbery, which they believe was committed by the people they're looking for. Without warning, Yada and the others from Homura suddenly attack, and after a violent fight, all of the men are defeated except for one. As they wait for Makoto to arrive, Kusanagi tells the group that the man still conscious is the leader of a well-known gang in the city. Soon Makoto and Anna show up before she kneels in front of the gang leader and uses her special powers to look into his mind, trying to find out what he knows. However, she comes back with nothing since the man has no useful information. Homer is disappointed, but they decide to leave instead of making things worse. On their way out, they go to the second floor of the hotel, where they run into members of a rival group called Sector 4, led by Reisi Munakata. The Sector 4 members block their path, and Kusanagi asks Makoto what they should do, so Makoto, staying calmly, tells them to burn them before the Homura members start chanting together for the fight. Makoto jumps into the lobby, letting out his burning aura. The heat is so intense that parts of the lobby start to melt, so Munakata, watching from the other side, tells his men to pull out their swords. More Homura members join Makoto, and they start fighting. Above the hotel, 2 huge floating swords known as the Sword of Damocles appear, a sign that a fight between 2 kings is happening. Meanwhile, in Ashinaka High School, students are busy getting ready for their school festival, and an ugly virgin boy with white hair named Yashiro Aizana realizes he forgot to bring lunch. He goes around like a peasant asking classmates to share their food. At first, they're unsure, but eventually, they give him small portions, and a girl named Kukuri watches him from across the room. Noticing he isn't eating many vegetables, so she decides to give him some of hers. Before she can reach him, though, Yashiro sneaks off again to find more people who might share food. Kukuri runs around the campus trying to find him, and her friend teases her, saying she probably has a crush on him, but Kukuri says it's not that, since she just feels like he disappears whenever she looks away. Meanwhile, Yashiro eats his mixed-together lunch on top of a school building, with a strange pink cat sitting beside him. Later, back in class, Kukuri says the school council needs someone to run errands, and Yashiro agrees to help, and since his iPhone 12 is missing, Kukuri writes the list of items on paper, so Yashiro leaves school to go buy everything. While he's out shopping, a member of Homura sees him and alliance the others, so Yada and several other members set out to find and capture him. After getting everything for school, Yashiro is suddenly attacked by Yada, so he hurriedly runs away, and the Homura members chase him all over the city. Eventually, they trap him in an alley, and Yada, Fatboy Kamamoto, Shalhai, and Kusanagi close in on him. Kusanagi lights his cigarette and uses the sparks to create fireballs, preparing to attack, but just before he can, a man with long hair suddenly appears and steps in front of Yashiro, protecting him. He swiftly defeats 3 of the Homura members and escapes with Yashiro and the pink cat. Kusanagi, watching from afar, recognizes the newcomer as Kuru Yatagami, also called the Black Doogie. Realizing the situation has become more complicated, Kusanagi decides it's time to move to Plan B. Kuru brings Yashiro and the cat to a nearby train station, so Yashiro thanks him. But Kuro introduces himself as a loyal follower of Ichigen Mua, the former 7th king. Kuro says his master's dying wish was for him to destroy the evil king, and he now believes Yashiro might be that king, shocking him. Every screen in the city suddenly switches to a video in which a man named Tatara Tatsuka is cheerily filming the nighttime city when someone shoots him, and the person who pulls the trigger looks like Yashiro. The video throws the entire city into chaos, and the officers from Sector 4 have been trying to figure out who hacked the network to broadcast the footage. Meanwhile, Yada, Kamamoto, and Shoei return to Omura's base, and Reisi Munakata confronts Makoto, who is now locked up, and accuses him of being behind the video's broadcast. Kuro points his sword at Yashiro, demanding to know if he really is the killer in the video as he stares at the screen in shock. Kuro accuses Yashiro of being the evil king shown in the video that's being shared all over Shizime City. Following the final orders of his master, Kuro says he has to kill Yashiro, hearing which Yashiro runs for the nearest exit with the pink cat following him. However, Kuro uses his power to trap Yashiro in mid-air and lift him off the ground. While holding Yashiro in the air by his collar, Kuro listens as Yashiro asks if he really plans to kill him. Yashiro says he's innocent and questions whether Kuro's master would really want him to kill someone without proof. Kuro hesitates, thinking about the video showing a white-haired man, then lowers Yashiro before grabbing him again. Yashiro keeps talking, saying that people shouldn't be judged by how they look but by what they're really like. Kuru disagrees, saying that a person's actions are what truly matter. Yashiro quickly says that if he is guilty, he should be taken to court instead of just being killed off. He says that's how Japan's justice system works, but Kuru mutters that he doesn't serve the country, only his master. Seeing that nothing he says is working, Yashiro tells Kuro to just get it over with. Right before Kuro attacks, Yashiro asks for one last favor, so Kuro agrees to listen. Yashiro says he wants to write a goodbye letter to his younger sister, who's very sick and in the hospital. He says she has no one else, no friends or family, and he wants her to believe he wasn't a bad person, even if others think he was. Yashiro writes the letter and gives it to Kuro, but when he reads it, he quickly realizes Yashiro made the whole story up. What a simp. Before Kuro can react, Yashiro uses flash bombs to blind him and runs off. When the light fades, Yashiro is gone. Kuro frustratingly kicks the nearby door, not knowing that Yashiro is actually near him, hiding in an animal costume. Somewhere else in the city, Homura members gather inside a high-tech van and see Shohei working on hacking the city's systems. He posts a digital wanted ad, showing Yashiro as the evil king and offering a reward of 10 million yen for catching him. Outside the van, Kusanagi talks to Anna and asks if she can sense where Yashiro is, so she says he's nearby. Kusanagi calls the other Homura members in the area and warns them to be careful, especially of Kuru, who's known as the Black Dog. On the streets, people are noticing the bounty, and Yashiro, who doesn't know about the reward, walks through town in his animal outfit. He spots Kuru near a street and quickly runs the other way, getting rid of the costume once he reaches a rooftop. Yaoi suddenly appears and attacks Kuru, demanding to know where Yashiro is. However, before they can start fighting, Yashiro shows himself like an idiot who wants to get killed. Yaoi rides toward Kuru on his skateboard, and Kuro fights back with his powers. He misses his first attack but then uses his ability to tear up the ground under Yaoi, making him fall. Yaoi quickly recovers and charges with his bat, so Kuro counters and a large billboard falls on Yaoi. After the battle, Kuro goes looking for Yashiro, but he's already gone and the only thing left is Yashiro's school pin, which Kuro angrily picks up. Meanwhile, Yashiro goes back to his dorm room and wearily starts complaining to the pink cat about everything that's happened. However, he's shocked to see that the cat has turned into a naked girl with a nice bod lying next to him. He hurriedly jumps out of bed and asks who she is, so she cheerily says her name is Neko. Meanwhile, Kuro arrives at a Shinaka high school with a briefcase and looks around for Yashiri. He runs into Kukuri, who offers to take him to Yashiro's dorm. Kuro thanks her and follows. When they reach the room, he drops his briefcase and uses his powers to launch himself at the door. He pulls out his sword, ready to strike, but Neko suddenly grabs Yashiro and escapes with him because she wants to play. Kuro chases them across campus, but every time he catches up, Neko uses illusions to trick him. He starts to wonder if she's working with Yashiro and tries to break through the illusions, but they keep slowing him down. Meanwhile, Yashiro is also chasing Nico, trying to get her wear something because of her big juicy melons. They keep playing tag all day until the next morning, and by then, all three of them are worn out and starving. Yashiro suggests they take a break from the cows and eat breakfast together. He tries cooking, but it doesn't work, so Kuro takes over and cooks the meal himself. He uses cooking tools from his briefcase, which Kukuri had brought to the room earlier. Kuro, Yashiro, and Neko sit down and silently eat together. Spectre 4 enters a mall, seeing which Makoto smilingly faces them with his lackeys. Munakata brandishes his sword for a moment and tells his team he'll handle this alone. He approaches Makoto and says he's bringing him in under Protocol 120. He asks Makoto if he has any objections, but he says he doesn't and will have Munakata look after him. Presently, Munakata opens a jail cell and slams Makoto into the wall. He says he'll get straight to the point and reveals that his Wisman level is pushing its limit, and if the Sword of Damocles falls, they'd have another Kagetsu crater on their hands, so if he insists on drawing more power from the Dresden slates, he will have to kill him. Makoto mutters that he has no idea what he's talking about, so Munakata says he's telling him to step down from his kingly position. Makoto smilingly sees that the things he is saying are as door as ever. Munakata mutters that he will have to come up with a way to keep him under control if that's the case. Makoto points out that there is actually one way to keep him locked up here forever and tells Munakata he could do it. The Blue King could keep an eye on him personally 24 hours a day inside this cell, and if he went berserk, he could restrain him by force. However, Munakata says the thought of having to breathe the same air as Makoto makes him ill, and he may not realize it, but he's a busy man and can't spend all his time with him. Makoto says he's sorry about that, and as Munakata leaves, he remarks that he's sorry too. Later, Munakata is in his office working on a puzzle while talking to his sexy assistant, Sari Washima, about how to keep Makoto locked up for good. Sari offers a few ideas, but Munakata notices that she doesn't seem to care much about his basic rights. He asks if she learned anything about the weapon used to murder Tatara Tatsuka, so she explains that it was apparently one of many modified models that the Mafia was dealing with, but the man in charge of their smuggling mission has gone missing, along with the truck. She says the Metro Police Department is taking this very seriously and is about to form an investigation unit, so she's considering a special request for a release of information. Wow, look at those huge melons. She asks if she should raise the alert level to a Prussian blue, but Munakata tells her to make it the next level, royal blue instead. Meanwhile, Tsuruhiko Fushimi from Sector 4 is at headquarters getting updates about a video leaked by Ohamare. While they're talking, Fushimi gets a phone call, and after listening, he says he's heading to the place mentioned. Kuru is having breakfast with Nico, who's eating really messily, so he plays a recording to remind her how she's supposed to act at the table. At Homura's bar, Anna is with Kusanagi, who's on a call about the video released by the Red Clan. After he hangs up, he mutters that their clan doesn't have much time to deal with everything. Suddenly, Yaeda bursts in, throws Kamemoto across the room, and starts beating him up. Shocked, Kusanagi stops the fight and demands an explanation. Kamemoto and Yaeda apologize for wrecking the bar, and Kusanagi learns that Kamemoto is upset because Makoto didn't resist being taken by the Blue Clan. Kusanagi explains that Makoto had his reasons and that he must have had a plan. After hearing this, Yaeda leaves to continue his work, and Anna quietly tells Kusanagi that she doesn't believe he really trusts Yaeda, even though he says he does. Meanwhile, Yashiro and Kuru are still eating when Yashio brings up the Homura members who attacked him. Kuru explains what kings and clans are, and how the whole system works. After learning all this, Yashiro realizes Homura is trying to kill him because they think he murdered one of their own. Kuru agrees and flatly says Yashiro is the killer before both Yashiro and Nico ask for more food. Kuru hesitates but gives it to them, telling Yashiro this might be his last meal. Meanwhile, Homura members go into a warehouse full of crates packed with weapons. While looking around, they see Fushimi outside, and he's annoyed that a certain person isn't there. Then suddenly attacks the group, even though they used to be his teammates. Later, during another meal, Yashiro asks Kuru why he wants to kill him, so Kuru explains that he's just following the last order given to him by his former master, Ichijin, who was also a king. He explains that kings actually hold a lot of power and secretly control the country. Yashiro is shocked and says the prime minister is supposed to be the most powerful person in Japan. However, Kuro says that's just for show, since the prime minister takes orders from the kings, especially the Blue King. In a shopping mall, Yaeda spots some gang members bothering a woman for information. Frustrated that they have nothing to do with Tatsuka's murder, he beats them up, and the other Homura members appear, and they all leave before the police or Fushimi can arrive. Yashiro, Kuro, and Neko finish their meal, and Kuru prepares to kill Yashiro, but Yashiro stops him and asks for a chance to prove that he's innocent, like he's been saying all along. After thinking it over, Kuro agrees only because he wants to see for himself if Yashiro is telling the truth. Kuru makes lunch for himself, Yashiro, and Nico on Yashiro's request, but warns them to not seal the box until the contents have cooled. Nico grabs some food before anyone else starts, seeing which Kuru annoyingly asks what she thinks she's doing. A cleaning robot picks up Yashiro's backpack, so he quickly tries to stop it, saying that it's not trash. However, it mistakenly thinks he's trash too, so it tries to throw him out along with the bag, seeing as Nico jumps on top of it and orders it to stop bullying Yashiro. As he's being pulled from the robot, Kuro asks him what he plans to do, so Yashiro says he'll obviously go to school since he has to turn in his assignment for his classical literature class. Kuro slowly asks if he's forgotten what he said and angrily questions if he has any intention of proving his innocence. Later, Yashiro goes to class, bringing Kuro and Neko along. The teacher asks Kuro who he is, so he menacingly declares that he is a vassal of the former 7th king, Ichijin Miwa. Yashiro hurriedly says he's a transfer student, and Kuro asks the teacher to not mind him. He smilingly thanks Kukuri for helping him the other day, so she cheerily says she didn't know he was a transfer student and introduces himself. Nico suddenly reveals herself as well, so the teacher asks who she is, and Yashiro says she's also a transfer student, sort of. During lunch, as students get ready for the school festival, Kukuri arrives with a lunchbox for Yashiro and is surprised to find him already eating with Kuruko, but Nico cheerily asks if there's any more food, so Kukuri asks if she would like some. Nico sees that her lunchbox has nothing but vegetables, as Kuro asks Yashiro if he can figure anything out from the picture, but he admits he can't because of how blurry it is. Kukuri asks what this is, so he reveals that it's a video he got from Mishina. Meanwhile, back at Sector 4's base, the team continues digging into Yashiro's background, while Anna uses her powers to locate him on a map. And when they see that he's at a Shinaka high school, Yaeda rushes off to find him. Meanwhile at the school, Yashiro, Kuru, and Neko dress in old-fashioned Japanese clothes to play famous figures from history for the festival. While helping out, Yashiro realizes that if someone saw him at school around 1:45 p.m. on December 7, that could prove he wasn't involved in the murder. Kukuri soon appears, and he asks if she saw him that night, but she says she can't remember. Yashiro sadly continues, searching the school for evidence and checks places like the student council office, hoping to find something that proves he stayed on campus. Eventually, he finds what he's looking for in the school's digital records, and the system shows that he never left the school grounds on the day of the festival. Seeing this, Kuro starts to believe that Yashiro is telling the truth, but Kukuri reminds Yashiro that he often forgets to take his school PDA with him. Since that device is needed to pass through the gates, it's possible he left the school without anyone knowing. Feeling lied to, Kuro prepares to kill Yashiro, so he quickly argues that there are several other places he could have been during the time of the murder. He mentions the gym, and Kukuri suddenly remembers seeing him there on December 8. She even has a photo of him as proof and says the picture was taken at 20:30, which means it's within an hour of the crime. Kuro admits it would have been impossible to return from the scene of the crime by then, and Yashiro cheerily says that means he has an alibi and owes Kukuri his life. At the school, Kuro, who is helping out with the festival, tells the students to stop messing around because they don't have much time until the school festival. A girl acknowledges that it's incredible how, ever since Kuro got serious about helping them, they've been getting a lot done. Kukuri annoyingly says the transfer student is working really hard while Yashiro has just gone off again, but her friend says she'd be more worried about whether these people really are transfer students. Yashiro wearily heads back to his room and mutters that having someone try to kill him every day is exhausting. He realizes he left his uniform in the classroom and opens his cupboard to get a shirt, but he's shocked to see that his clothes have blood stains on them, and suddenly remembers the night when he suddenly shot Tatsuka and madly declared that he is the 7th king, the colorless king, and is waiting for someone. Presently, Neko smilingly asks Yashiro if there's a problem and says Kukuri gave her super spicy crackers and asked her to call him. Yashiro smilingly says he'll be right there, but she notices that his expression looks off and asks if he has a stomach ache, but he assures her it's nothing. Kuro keeps encouraging the students to work harder as they get ready for the school festival. While watching them, he notices a small tear in Kukuri's left sleeve just as she's handing some rice crackers to Neko. Worried, he walks over and offers to fix it. After sewing it up, he turns to Yashiro and tells him off for being lazy, but Yashiro isn't really listening since his mind is still stuck on the bloody shirt he found in his closet. Unsure of what to do next, he asks Kuro for advice, and Kuro tells him to run some errands in town. Meanwhile, at Sector 4 headquarters, Isiri gets permission to investigate a Shinaka high school, so she decides to bring along her team members Akiyama and Benzai. She also includes Fushimi, even though he doesn't want to go. Fushimi asks what they should do if Yashiro tries to fight back, so Siri firmly says they're only there to arrest him, and that wondering if he'll resist is a silly question. At the school, Yada and Kamamoto manage to sneak in by scaring 2 students and stealing their PDAs to open the gate. As they enter the campus, they don't realize that Yashiro, Kuro, and Neko just used a secret exit to leave and are heading into town so Yashiro can buy more fireworks for the festival. A while later, Siri and her team arrive at the school and meet with the principal. Siri asks to check the school's records to find Yashiro Aisana, but they don't actually know who he is. While Siri is arguing, Fushimi quickly sneaks away to wander around the school. Meanwhile, Yada and Kamamoto start asking students if they've seen someone who looks like Tatsuka's killer, but they don't seem to know anything. Eventually, Yada, Kamamoto, and Fushimi all end up near a stone statue in the courtyard, but none of them notice the others, just like the idiots that they all are. Fushimi heads into the student council office and drugs Sakura so he can get in. Once inside, he hacks into the school's computer system, searching for anyone who looks like the killer, but just as he finishes, he hears something outside and sees Yada and Kamamoto still looking for Yashiro, so he walks outside to meet them. He calls out to Yada and Kamamoto, saying that once Anna found the killer's location, they ran off to the school without waiting for Kusanagi's permission. He starts mocking Yada, so Kamamoto tries to calm him down at first, but when Fushimi mentions Makoto, Yada starts fighting Fushimi. They use both weapons and their powers in the battle, and Yada sees that Fushimi has gotten out of practice, but Fushimi declares that he's stronger than ever. As they continue fighting, Fushimi throws 2 knives and one hits Yada in the right shoulder, so Kamamoto tries to help, but Fushimi throws more knives to keep him back. Both Fushimi and Yada tell him to stay out of it as Yada gets back up and argues with Fushimi before the fight continues. Siri suddenly arrives and orders them to stop, so Yada complies, and Siri tells him that Makoto is fine and currently being held in a Sector 4 cell. Hearing this, Yada walks away with Kamamoto. They head to the school sports field and sit in the bleachers while Kamamoto wraps Yada's injured shoulder. Kamamoto says it's time to leave, so Yada agrees, but says he wants to ask one more person about Yashiro before going. He finds Kukuri and asks if she knows anyone named Yashiro Isana, but she doesn't recognize the name or remember meeting someone like that. Meanwhile, Fushimi finishes his report to Seri and tells her that even after checking all the student records, he couldn't find anyone who matches the appearance of Tatsuka's killer. While Makoto is sleeping, he starts to dream and sees that he's standing in a broken, empty city. The only thing there is his sword of Damocles, which looks like it's falling apart and floating above him. His aura flares out of control and burns his right hand, and the pain gives him a strong headache. The dream suddenly changes to the night Tatsuka was killed. A man with white hair suddenly shoots Makoto, injuring him. The man says something, but Makoto can't focus because his anger is growing and his aura bursts out even more. The last thing he sees in the dream is Anna, surrounded by a glowing aura, begging Makoto not to go after which he suddenly wakes up. Makoto wearily thinks about all the years he spent with Tatsuka and their time together. Meanwhile, at a restaurant in Shizum City, Yashiro sits quietly and thinks about how none of his classmates remember him being at the festival. He also keeps thinking about the bloody shirt he found in his closet, and when their food is served, Kuro tells Yashiro to stop acting like nothing's wrong and take the idea seriously that he might be blamed for murder. However, Yashiro stays calm and doesn't seem too worried. Nico eats messily and gets scolded by Kuro for having no table manners. Yashiro then notices a wall full of customer photos. He looks at them and realizes that even though he's eaten there before, his photo isn't there as Kuro quietly watches him. At Homaru's bar, Kusanagi is restocking drinks when a woman walks in and sits at the counter. He quickly recognizes her as Siri from Scepter 4, also known as the Heartless Woman. He politely asks for her drink order, and as she's sipping her drink, Siri tells Kusanagi he seems unperturbed considering his king is another king's prisoner, and asks what he's up to. She's sure he's aware of what might happen soon and reminds him that Japan's topography will change dramatically if a king loses control. Kusanagi smilingly says that's why he's with him. Before leaving, Siri stops by the jukebox so Kusanagi tells her it belonged to a past member of their group who used to spend a lot of money on his hobbies. Meanwhile, Makoto keeps thinking about his memories with Tatsuka. 8 years ago, when Makoto was still in high school, a younger boy from middle school started following him around. One day, Makoto was relaxing at Homare with Kusanagi when they got a phone call and learnt that the same boy had been beaten up and sent to the hospital. Makoto and Kusanagi went to visit him and saw the boy Tatsuka, who excitedly greeted them. Makoto asked who attacked him, but Kusanagi warned Tatsuka to stay away from their group to stay safe. Tatsuka didn't listen, and when Makoto told him to stop following them, Tatsuka just asked him to scratch his itchy foot. Makoto did it, then lightly hit him on the head before walking away. When he was alone with Kusanagi, Tatsuka said he wanted to stay with Makoto and serve him, wondering if Makoto would really become a king one day. Presently, Yashiro and his group stop at a shop in town and Kuro tries to read the shopping list Yashiro gave him for fireworks, but the handwriting is too messy for him. He annoyingly decides to call Kukuri to check the list, but Nico objects, saying she doesn't like phones. When they ask why, she suddenly screams, turns into her cat form, and runs off crying. Kuro ignores it and calls Kukuri anyway, then gives the phone to Yashiro. When Yashiro asks Kukuri about the fireworks, she says she doesn't know who he is and quickly hangs up. Yashiro tells Kuro about this, which makes him suspicious. Kuro gives Yashiro the phone again to try calling his own home, but this time, the number says it's no longer in service. At Omara, 5 years after first meeting Tatsuka, Makoto walks into the bar after dealing with some troublemakers. Anna walks over and sits beside him and Tatsuka wakes up from a nap and says they're having dinner. Makoto complains about being the Red King, but Tatsuka tells him his power can be used to protect people he cares about. Mikoto doesn't answer and instead asks more about the food, so Tatsuka describes the dish and invites Anna to help him cook, since she was interested in it because of the name. Later, on a train, Yashiro and Kuro sit next to each other, so Yashiro explains what happened with the phone calls and wonders what's going on. Makoto remembers another moment with Tatsuka, just 3 months before he died when Tatsuka was trying to skateboard inside the bar, which annoyed Kusanagi. Later, Tatsuka excitedly showed off his new camera and was happy to take pictures and record videos. Anna asked him to play a song, so he cheerily agreed and began to play the guitar and sing for everyone at Omare. Makoto remembers the night Tatsuka was killed when Kusanagi and Yada found him on a rooftop, badly wounded and lying in a pool of blood. Tatsuka tried to explain what happened and revealed that the attacker called himself the Colorless King, but he couldn't finish the story and passed away. Yada told him they'd get help, but Tatsuka passed away a few moments later, shocking Yada, who started crying. Presently, as it starts to rain, Yashiro and Kuro arrive at a soccer stadium. Yashiro says this is where his house should be, but there's nothing there. He thinks about it and mutters that maybe he's not who he thinks he is. Kuro agrees and says it's possible Yashiro's identity is fake. Yashiro starts crying and asks if Kuru still plans to kill him, so Kuru slowly reaches for his sword and Yashiro braces himself. However, Kuru unexpectedly plays a recording, a message from a Chajin who encourages Yashiro to not give, after which Kuru tells Yashiro that he won't kill him unless there's clear proof that he's guilty. While standing out in the cold rain, Yashiro tries to talk to Kuru, but before he can finish, the stadium lights suddenly switch on. Sector 4 has surrounded the area, and Siri leads a team onto the field. Using a loudspeaker, she says that Yashiro and Kuru are under arrest. Yashiro calmly suggests they turn themselves in, but no one listens and Kuru refuses to surrender. Siri and her soldiers pull out their weapons, and Kuru gets ready to fight. However, before the battle begins, everything around them suddenly changes, and they find themselves standing on a sunny street in Shizume City, which is an illusion created by Neko. While walking around the fake city, Siri reaches out to touch a man walking by, but he disappears as soon as she touches him. Realizing that she's trapped in an illusion, she tells her team to block off the area while Nico finds Yashiro and Kuru and helps guide them toward an exit. On the way, they run into Sector 4 members, but Kuru quickly knocks them aside. Just when they think they've escaped, Siri finds them again and starts fighting Kuru, who tries to land a strong blow. Before anything serious happens, Makata arrives, revealing that he was off duty but came because Fushimi pushed him to. He quickly starts breaking Neko's illusions while also guessing what's really going on. Kuru sees how strong Munada is and tells Yashiro and Neko to run away, so they start to leave, and Sari tells Fushimi to block the exits. As Yashiro is leaving, he suddenly stops and looks back. Neko urges him to keep going, but he doesn't listen. Meanwhile, Kuru pulls out his sword, Kotori, ready to fight. Munakata recognizes it as a sword that once belonged to Ichijin, Kuru's teacher. Hearing that, Kuru rushes at him and starts attacking, but Munakata easily defends himself and lands a light hit on Kuru. Even though he's hurt, Kuru keeps fighting. Eventually, Munakata overpowers him and holds him down. He explains that the Colorless King is the 7th and weakest king, and isn't a powerful presence alone, but he is the wild card who could tip the balance between kings. In other words, he is the power they need to be the most wary of. Kuro says he will not let anyone lay a hand on Yashiro until he's made a decision, so Munakata mutters that might have been his plan from the start, to remain neither good nor evil and maintain an ambiguous position so that he can keep the black dog, Yatagami Kuro, as his bodyguard. He warns Kuru that they all might just be puppets in a grand scheme, so Kuru agrees that he has a point since that's the sort of fellow Yashiro is and smiles. The lights in the stadium suddenly turn off as Yashiro reveals himself in the stands. Munakata calmly asks if he forgot something and Kuro questions why he came back. Before he can say more, Munakata knocks him down again. Yashiro says he can't leave his friends behind and apologizes to Kuro for keeping things from him. He slowly reveals a growing white light in his hands, which turns into a huge sword floating in the sky. He uses his mind to speak directly to Kuru and sends a blast of white energy at Munakata, who pushes back with his own aura. The impact gives Kuru a chance to break free, so he punches Munakata, and both he and Yashiro run off and escape from the stadium. Munakata stands still in shock and slowly picks up his glasses, which were knocked off during the fight, after which Siri contacts the local police to take over the situation. Later, Yashiro, Kuru, and Neko meet again in a dark alley in the city, and Kuru, still hurt, decides to rest. Yashiro thanks Neko for helping them escape, especially for using her illusions. Kuru mutters that Nuko can also mess with people's memories, so Yashiro asks if she can try bringing back his own memories. Neko is unsure, but Yashiro says he'll take responsibility for whatever they find out. After thinking about it, Nico agrees and starts by showing him her first memory of him, which happened in the gym at a Shinaka high school around December. Once that memory comes back clearly, Yashiro asks her to go even further into his past. She tries again and succeeds. This time, Yashiro sees himself being pushed off an airship by someone and shockingly questions who that was. Yashiro, Kuru, and Neko finally reach the bridge leading to a Shinaka high school. They stop to rest on the grassy area nearby, and Yashiro wonders if the school still means anything to him, since he now knows he isn't who he thought he was. Kuro says they should avoid going back, since Sector 4 is probably still looking for them, but Nico and Yashiro both say the school is like home to them. Even if Yashiro's true identity is uncertain, the school is still the one place that feels familiar, and Yashiro decides to treat this as a new beginning and start fresh. Meanwhile, Siri is eating lunch with Munakata and gives him an update about the search for Yashiro and his group. Every team they send to find them has failed, mostly because of bad weather, and their traffic cameras haven't seen anything strange either. Munakata says the group seems to be purposely staying away from both him and Fushimi, before Siri adds that they've been watching the areas around the school closely. Munakata admits that catching Yashiro won't be easy, especially since he has strong support now. Fushimi enters after being given permission and reveals that a man from their 3rd division, Chikushi, was attacked and came back to base with minor injuries. Fushimi says the attacker was Yatagami Kuru, who took Chikushi's PDA. Munakata guesses Yashiropa's group is trying to contact them, and Fushimi shows a slip of paper found at the scene. They see a 14 unwritten on it, which means there will be a phone call at 200 p.m., which is only 15 minutes away. Munakata quickly tells Fushimi to get ready in case something serious happens. At exactly 200 p.m., he gets a call from Yashiro. They talk for a moment, and Yashiro explains that he knows someone on an airship who might be connected to Tatsuka's murder. Munakata doesn't like where the conversation is going, especially since Yashiro is asking to meet someone very specific. Realizing Munakata isn't interested, Yashiro makes him a deal he will turn himself in peacefully if he's allowed to talk to the man on the airship. Munakata hesitates but agrees and says the man is Adolf K. Wiesman, the Silver King. However, Munakata insists that after the meeting, Yashiro and his friends must let themselves be arrested. As soon as Wiesman's name is mentioned, Munakata signals something to Fushimi, so she quickly gathers a team and heads out to search for Yashiro. They drive along a nearby highway, talking about their targets and the danger they might face. They stop a cargo delivery man and search his truck. They see that Yashiro had clearly been there earlier, but he's gone now. Meanwhile, Yashiro, Kuru, and Nico are hiding at the back of a cargo ship. Yashiro says that even while he was talking to Munakata, they were being tracked, and if Kuru hadn't sensed the blue clansmen nearby, they probably would have been caught. Yashiro then turns to Nico and says he's counting on her for what happens next. Later that night, Sector 4 begins a mission to an airport using several transport trucks. Damioji says this might be their biggest operation ever and gets annoyed when Kamo brings up the Kagutsu crater incident, comparing the number of helicopters used. Siri gives Munakata an updating. Even though they've tried to reach Wiesman 3 times in the last 5 hours, he hasn't responded. Munakata decides they need to act now, and even though they don't have official permission, he believes they must move before the Gold King notices anything. He says he'll take the blame later and explain everything himself. At Siri's request, Munakata explains that he made this choice because even though he accepted Yashiro's request, there were already signs that something was wrong with the Silver King's airship, the Himmelreach. Munakata says the ship usually follows the same flight path, one that hasn't changed in decades, but recently, it's been flying a different route for no clear reason, and there's no weather or natural reason for the change. What made Munakata even more suspicious is that the change started around the same time Tatsuka was killed, which made him think the Silver King might be involved. Once Sector 4 reaches the airport, they get on helicopters and prepare for takeoff. The helicopters fly into the night sky in formation, heading straight for the Himmelreach. Inside the airship, Wiesman sees the helicopters coming and excitedly tells the woman with him that it's time to welcome their guests. As they dance, glowing images of the helicopters appear on the floor below them. A while later, Wiesman pushes the woman aside and walks to the window, calling out to the Blue Klansmen and inviting them to come closer while manically laughing. Meanwhile, Yashiro, Kuru, and Nico have secretly gotten aboard one of the helicopters and are pretending to be part of the Sector 4 soldiers. While flying, Kuru tells them everything he knows about the Silver King's history, and Nico starts playing with the helicopter controls. She suddenly grabs the controls and says she wants to reach the ship before anyone else. She pulls the control stick hard, making the helicopter fly straight toward the Himmelreach's engines. A huge explosion happens instantly as they crash into the ship's engine and cause it to catch fire. At Ashinaka High School, Kokuri hears the loud noise and rows to her window, wondering what that light is. Near the end of World War II, a Japanese officer named Daiku Kokoacheji is taken to a secret lab under the ground in Germany where he meets a scientist named Adolf K. Wiesman, who is doing a strange experiment. On a table shaped like a maze, Wiesman places a few white lab mice. Some of the mice have colored marks on their backs, and when Wiesman connects them to something called the Dresden slate, a strange reaction happens. Bright, colorful lights called auras surround the mice, and above the marked ones, a glowing sword shape appears in the air, shocking Kokujoji. Wiesman explains that the slate has mysterious powers and it needs living creatures to carry its energy. Kojoji thinks it could be used to make super soldiers for war, but Wiesman disagrees and believes the slate should help people, not cause harm. Suddenly, the red aura around one mouse becomes unstable and explodes, breaking the table. Wiesman's older sister, Claudia, walks into the lab and jokingly asks if her brother has been bothering Kokochoji. After learning the experiment worked, she scolds Wiesman for being rude to a guest, reminding him that his work is paid for by the government. When she sees him listening, she tells him to ignore her. Kokoji admits he's confused, making them both laugh. Later, the city is bombed, and many buildings are destroyed, so Kokudeji searches the ruins and sees a floating sword of Damocles in the sky. He runs toward it and finds Wiesman holding Claudia's dead body. Months later, Wiesman meets Kokoji again and they talk about the many lives lost in the war, which seems to be ending. Before leaving on his personal airship, the Himmelreach, Wiesman says goodbye, but Kokojoji calls after him. accusing him of running away from the world. Years later, news comes out that the Himmelreach has crashed, and the next morning, reporters arrive and ask locals what they think about Waisman's supposed death, and police also investigate the crash. Akiyama arrives and wants to know who's in charge, but the Gold Clan, Kokuyoji's group, is already handling it. Akiyama reports this to Captain Munakata, and another team, led by Siri, checks out a crashed helicopter that was flying with the airship. No bodies are found, but the 3 men who were flying it are found alive in a hangar far away. At Ashinaka High School, students are getting ready for the school festival, and Mishina, who's working on decorations, bends a nail and looks around for help, but no one is nearby. Kukuri walks by and asks for assistance, so Mishina tells her to ask him, but neither of them can remember who he is. Kukuri asks Mishina to come along, and he agrees, seeing Sumika mutters that something feels off before another student joins them, and they all head out. The group of 4 goes to the boys' dorm to clean out an unused room, and as they pass a vending machine, Kukuri vaguely remembers buying a drink for someone there once. When they get to the room, they realize it's not completely abandoned, since it looks like someone may have been using it in secret. They feel like forgetting something important as Kukuri sees a rice cooker and can't remember what it means to her. Back at the Gold Clan's base, Kokujoji enters a locked room where the Dresden slate and Waisman's body are kept in a special container. Kokujoji quietly pays his respects before Munakata is allowed in, and Kokujoji asks if he wants to talk or fight. Munakata says he wants to talk and thanks him for allowing his top squad, Royal Blue, to act. He asks to examine Waisman's body, and Kokuji hesitates but says yes. After checking the body, Munakata leaves with his team members Goto and Kamo. Meanwhile, Makoto is locked in a high-security cell when he receives a red phone. The phone lifts by itself, and a creepy voice on the other end says they're the one who killed Tatsuka. A small, white animal appears from the phone and mocks Makoto and talks about his friends Kusanagi, Yada, and Anna. Makoto doesn't say anything but is pulled into a weird illusion made by the fox. Inside it, he creates a giant red aura in the shape of a lion and burns his way out. The fox retreats and returns to the place the call came from, Yashiro's old room at Ashinaka High School, but Makoto's fire follows the signal and causes a big explosion there. Now that Makoto knows where his enemy is, he breaks out of his restraints and smashes open his cell door. Even though the building is on full lockdown by Sector 4, he effortlessly walks out, destroying the security as he goes, and the blue clansmen outside don't stop him since they've been told not to by Munakata. Siri tries to stop him with a binding spell, but he swiftly breaks free and sends out a blast of red aura that shatters Fushimi's barrier and tears through the Sector 4 base. Outside, Makoto meets up with his followers and tells them they're heading to Ashinaka High School, so they all start walking there together. As they travel, Anna suddenly sees her red marble float into the air and then break apart before a sharp piece cuts her hand, and the blood forms into a red orb like the marble. She gets a vision from Makoto's recent dream and shockingly asks him if he really plans to go through with his goal, but he doesn't say anything. Understanding what this means, Anna quietly follows him as the rest of the clan continues walking behind them, and the small red drop of blood falls to the ground and splashes. Kukuri and Sumika are carrying boxes full of supplies for the school festival through the halls of Ashinaka High. While walking, Kukuri stops by a window to take a short break and suddenly notices something odd in the sky. A sword of Damocles floating above the school gates. Confused, she wonders what it is before a loud explosion goes off near the entrance and the students start screaming in fear. The Red Clan quickly takes over the school and the students try to escape, but they suddenly stop when Mikoto sends out a blast of red energy that crashes into the clock tower, and the blast causes the top of the tower to collapse near its base. A while later, Kusanagi uses the school's loudspeakers to speak to everyone and tells the students not to be afraid since they're not there to hurt anyone. He explains that Hamura is looking for a specific person and says that as long as everyone cooperates, no one will be harmed. He also announces that Oamara now controls the school. He orders the others to search for Yashiro Isana, who they believe is responsible for killing Tatsuka, but even after searching everywhere, they still can't find him. In the student council room, Kusanagi stays with Anna and Eric while they listen to updates from the rest of Homura. Yada calls to report that Sector 4 has arrived, and Kusanagi shares the news with Anna and Eric and wonders what it might mean. Meanwhile, Anna tries to use her powers to find Yashiro, but she can't sense him anywhere on the school grounds. Outside, across the school's bridge, the Blue Clan shows up. Sari bows and apologizes to Munakata for failing to keep Makoto locked up earlier, but he tells her not to worry about it. The two talk about how serious the situation is, and how a battle between Omara and their group might break out, and how Makoto and Yashiro might end up fighting each other. After their talk, Siri says all their teams are ready, but Munakata says he wants to take a moment to do something for himself. As the day progresses, it starts snowing and Anna walks into the courtyard and sees Makoto sitting alone. She softly brushes snow off him, not wanting his red aura to be covered, but Makoto melts the snow off his own body using his powers before Anna lies down beside him and slowly starts to fall asleep in the snow. Meanwhile, Kusanagi gets a phone call from someone asking him to take care of something, so he agrees, then meets Yada on a rooftop. As he smokes a cigarette, they talk about what's been happening around the school, and they slowly start talking about Fushimi, who used to be part of Hamare. Fushimi also remembers the time he spent with Hamare and the memories he made with him. Kusanagi goes back to the courtyard to see Makoto and Anna and jokes with Makoto, saying he's relaxing while everyone else is working hard to find Yashiro. Makoto answers calmly and they talk about how the search is going. Eventually, Makoto gets up and heads toward the forest outside the school, where he finds an old stone path that leads to a shrine. There, Munakata is waiting for him and offers Makoto a cigarette and lights one for himself. As they smoke, Munakata offers Makoto a deal. If Makoto gives up control of the school peacefully, Munakata will let him decide what to do with Yashiro, even offering to kill Yashiro himself. However, Makoto declines, so Munakata tells him that he's falling apart as a king and that both his body and mind are at their limit. He says Makoto should step down, but Makoto doesn't change his mind, infuriating him. He pins Makoto to the ground and yells that dragging students into a personal fight is wrong. However, Makoto stays quiet, refusing to give in, seeing which Munakata lets go of him and walks away. At the school, Yashiro, Kuru, and Nico return to Yashiro's old room to see that it's been badly burned and destroyed. Yashiro mutters that he never thought he'd return to find his home wrecked like this, and Kuru says when they heard the school was under Hamare's control, they rushed back but never imagined the Red King would show up as well, and the Blues have the entire area locked down. Yashiro hunting for his true identity will have to be put on hold for a while, and Kuru admits this island will become a battleground for a clan war in the worst-case scenario. Nico says it's only right that they come back to our home, and Yashiro agrees. He asks what they should do next and if they should ask the Ichijin, since he has the ability to see the future and might be able to see their situation and give them some advice. However, Kuru declines and says they know what they have to do next, because they need to rescue Kukuri and the others, and there's no need to ask Ichijin. Yashiro smilingly agrees and suggests that they start by finding out where Kukuri and the others are. They leave and Yashiro tells Nico to not worry, because they'll be back here in a while. Later that night, a man wearing a cloak and a golden mask sneak onto the school grounds. He quietly plants a time bomb near one of the buildings and disappears. The next morning, Yada complains to Kusanagi about how huge the school is and says there aren't enough people to help him watch the entrance, so Kusanagi sends more to help him out. Nearby, Makoto quietly remembers his conversation with Munakata from the previous night. After thinking for a while, he walks up to Kusanagi, places a hand on his shoulder, and leaves without saying anything before Anna gently touches his coat as he walks away, worried. Outside, members of Scepter 4 are still standing near the bridge leading to the school, and Munakata thinks about his discussion with Makoto. Behind him, his team is getting restless, wondering if they're finally going to be allowed inside the school and asking how they'll do it, so Sari tells them to be patient a little longer. Suddenly, a loud explosion goes off inside the school and black smoke rises into the sky. Alarms start ringing, and everyone on campus starts panicking, seeing which Munakata realizes something serious has happened and gives the order for his team to move in. Scepter 4 heads toward the front of the school, where a large group of Ham-Ara members are already waiting. Sari orders them to surrender or be ready to fight, but the Red Clan members don't back down and seem excited for a battle. Munakata sees that things are getting out of control and tells Sari to lead the charge, so she draws her sword, and the Blue Clansmen charge ahead with her. Hammer members rush forward as well, and the two groups slam into each other in a full-on battle. A while later, a strong explosion shakes a part of the school, and everyone in the middle of fighting stops to look. Munakata quickly uses his powers to fly through the air and reach the back of the main building, just as a big section explodes and falls apart. On the ground, Eric from Hamare is lying there, calling for help, so Munakata rushes to save him and uses his energy to stop the falling debris. However, when he leans in to help, Eric suddenly smiles and stabs him in the stomach, shocking Munakata as the debris starts falling. This idiot really got baited by a useless side character. More explosions go off in other parts of the school, and Anna, sensing that something is wrong, runs down the halls trying to figure out what's going on. She looks out a broken window and sees a figure standing on a nearby rooftop before someone suddenly fires and the glass next to her breaks. Kusanagi quickly arrives to protect her and looks out to see a sniper from Scepter 4 aiming at them. He sends Masami to go after the shooter while he tries to understand what's happening. Meanwhile, students are running from the explosions as Kukuri stops and looks back, confused. Another blast sends the Scepter 4 sniper falling off the roof toward her, but Kuru arrives just in time to save her. Yashiro and Nico soon join them, and even though Kukuri doesn't remember who they are, Yashiro tells her they're there to protect her and take her somewhere safe before Mikoto arrives, looking dangerous. Meanwhile, Chudos encourages the Hamar members to keep fighting and defeat the Blues. The Blue Klansmen are shocked when news spreads that Munakata is hurt. Siri shakily reminds them to stay united and strong before Yada suddenly attacks her, forcing her to defend herself. As they're fighting, Fushimi steps in, stopping Yada's attack and saying it's time to finish their fight once and for all. Meanwhile in the courtyard, Kuro blocks Mikoto's path to protect his friends and tries to fight him, but Mikoto easily knocks him aside. Nico uses her power to create an illusion to distract Mikoto, and they try to help Kuro escape, but Mikoto sees through the trick and destroys the illusion. Kuro tells Yashiro, Nico, and Kukuri to run while he holds Mikoto off and fights again but is overwhelmed. Before anything worse happens, Munakata and Eric arrive, so Kuri uses the chance to grab his friends and get away, while Mikoto prepares to battle Munakata again. Yashiro, Kuro, Nico, and Kukuri find a quiet spot inside a shopping area on campus to rest. Nico complains that she's tired of fighting and says they should leave since Kukuri is safe before Kukuri notices a cut on Yashiro's side and offers to check it. However, when he leans closer, she suddenly stabs him with a piece of broken glass. Kuro quickly tackles her and demands an explanation, so she says she didn't think they would make it this far and now plans to make sure they don't go any further. Her eyes suddenly start glowing and a fox-shaped spirit bursts from her and attacks Yashiro. It mockingly tells Yashiro he's running away from his duty and living a meaningless life without memories, hearing which Yashiro starts feeling hopeless. While struggling with his thoughts, Yashiro sees an image of a younger Kokujoji asking if he's just escaping from his responsibilities. However, he suddenly hears Nico's voice calling to him before she and Kuro rush to his side. The fox spirit disappears back into Kukuri's body, and she escapes as Yashiro falls to the ground, but something inside him changes. He starts to remember things from long ago, Claudia Wiseman, Dakaku, and the mysterious Dresden slate. A glowing silver light surrounds him and he slowly stands up before a silver beam shoots into the sky. Mikoto and Munakata are about to continue their battle in the forest, but when they see the silver light coming from the school, they stop, surprised. The other blue and red clansmen stop fighting as well and look toward the beam. Kusanagi and Anna notice it from inside the school, and Anna wonders who could be behind it before a shape begins to appear in the light, and they see that it's a sword of Damocles that has all the colors of the Seven Kings. From a distant location, Kokujoji sees the light and sighs, surprised that is still full of surprises. At the shopping center, Nico and Kuru sit beside Yashiro, worried, and ask if he's okay. Yashiro answers in German, saying he's fine and can't be hurt, but Kuro, still unsure, asks if he's really the collarless king. Yashiro shakes his head and reveals that he's not the collarless king, he's the first king, the Silver King Adolf K. Wiesmann. In 1945, Adolf K. Wiesmann gets on his airship, the Himmelreich, after saying goodbye to Lieutenant Kokujoji, and as the ship rises into the sky, he thinks about how he's alone now but hopes he'll see Kokujoji again someday. Presently, when Yashiro reveals that he is actually Adolf K. Wiesmann, the Silver King, both Kuru and Nico are shocked and ask if he's really the Silver King, so he confirms this but assures them he's still the same person they've come to know. Outside on the battlefield, people watch in shock as Yashiro's sword of Damocles disappears. Fushimi annoyingly swings his sword at Yada, so they quickly start fighting again, and the other clansmen also continue battling. In the forest near the school, Mikoto tells Munakata that he can go help his team if he wants to. Munakata asks if leaving would ruin the moment, so he says it would, and tells him this will be their final fight, so the two prepare to battle. A few days earlier, Wiseman, still in his real body, is visited by a man who looks exactly like Yashiro. This man introduces himself as the new collarless king, and Wiesmann politely says he doesn't care who the man is since he has chosen to stay away from everything. However, the collarless king is more interested in Wiesmann's immortality. Suddenly, a glowing white, fox-like creature shoots out of the man's eyes and rushes into Wiesmann, which knocks him out. When Wiesmann wakes up, he realizes he's now in the collarless king's body, standing on the edge of the airship, and across from him, the fox creature, now inside Wiesmann's body, threatens to push him off. Presently, Wiesmann, now in Yashiro's body, explains everything to Kuru and Neko and tells them that on December 7th, the collarless king forced them to switch bodies, but Wiesmann wasn't fully taken over because of his special Silver King powers. Kuru realizes that the Silver King can resist other powers, but the collarless king has powers designed to break through people's defenses, which is why Wiesmann lost his memories and ended up the way he did. Kuru also figures out that the collarless king is the one who killed Tadara Tatsuka, and Yashiro adds that the fox-like spirit is now inside Kukuri's body, and they have to save her. He asks Kuru and Nico to help him stop the collarless king for good. Meanwhile, outside the school, the Hamare and Scepter 4 members are still fighting, and Seri nervously watches the fight until she sees both Mikoto's and Munakata's swords of Damocles in the sky, clashing above the forest. She's relieved to know Munakata is still alive and rushes off to find him, leaving Kamo in charge. While looking from a rooftop, she sees Yashiro and Nico floating in the air and tries to attack Yashiro with her sword, but to her shock, it doesn't work. Instead, she starts floating too because of Yashiro's powers. He explains that she has connected with his power in a small way before glowing orbs appear around them, allowing the three of them to quickly fly across the school grounds. On the battlefield, Kuru arrives and defeats a group of fighters from both sides. He tells everyone to stop fighting, saying the Silver King gave a direct order, but the fighters say they don't follow the Silver King, so they won't listen. Kuru then asks if their own kings really told them to fight like this, and says they should wait for further commands. However, Fushimi and Yada don't care and prepare to attack Kuru again. Meanwhile, Shohei tells Kusanagi that Kuru has joined the fight, which surprises him. Anna senses a king nearby and opens a window before Yashiro, Nico, and Siri crash into the student council room. Kusanagi and Shoei are cautious, but Anna tells them that the newcomers aren't enemies. Kusanagi's phone rings, and Yashiro guesses who it might be before it's revealed to be Deikaku Kokujoji, the Gold King. Meanwhile, Makoto and Munakata are having a fight in the forest, tearing everything around them apart. Munakata's glasses break, and he takes them off, so Makoto teases him, asking if he's finally getting serious. Munakata doesn't answer as the collarless king watches them from a tree, and to the spirits of someone he once possessed before the spirit notes that the school has gotten really quiet. Meanwhile at the school, Yashiro speaks to Kokujoji on the phone, and they talk about what needs to happen. After the call ends, Kusanagi and Siri say they've regained control of their people and are helping students evacuate. They worry about the danger of the colorless king possessing a student, but Yashiro states that he doesn't plan to use any students to finish his mission, because his real targets are the kings. Suddenly, the colorless king uses telepathy to speak directly into everyone's mind on campus. He warns them that they're all his and resistance is futile, so they should form a ring around his fingertips and dance until they all die. Yashiro goes over to Nico, who is shaken by what she heard. He gently asks her to use a lot of her power to help him and asks if she wants to become his first clansman. Nico nervously says she's just his Nico, and he's her Shiro, and even though she's tired, she agrees and creates a huge illusion over the entire school. Many copies of Yashiro appear all around the school, walking up to different groups of students. Most of the students remember him only as the person accused of killing Tatsuka, but as Yashiro talks to them, they start to trust him. They begin to evacuate as he guides them, and Nico, exhausted from using so much power, collapses into a chair, so Kusanagi and Siri stay by her side while Yashiro keeps working. After hearing Yashiro's voice echo through the school, the colorless king starts feeling pain and becomes weaker, but he doesn't want to give up, and as he walks back toward the school, the souls of the people he possessed start to fight back inside him before Kukuri's voice rises above the rest, softly asking for help. In the forest near a shrine, Makoto and Munakata continue fighting. Mikoto is more hurt, but he accuses Munakata of not fighting seriously. He demands to know why Munakata is holding back, so he explains that, as the leader of Sector 4, his job isn't just to win, but to protect and solve problems without causing more destruction. Makoto gets angry at this answer and keeps attacking, pushing the fight forward. Meanwhile at the school, Kuru fights Fushimi and Yada, and even though they're strong, Kuru easily defeats them. As they fall to the ground, Yada suddenly yells in pain, and Fushimi sees that Yada's mark is glowing red, showing that Makoto is about to lose control of his power. Yada becomes worried and angrily asks if Fushimi even cares about Makoto anymore. Before things can get worse, Kuru stops them and says he's done fighting. Kamamoto arrives to pick up Yada and Fushimi, taking them back to rejoin their group. After they leave, Yashiro floats down and lands beside Kuru, so they briefly talk and update each other. Yashiro reminds Kuru that their next goal is to save Kukuri and says he needs Kuru's help. Kuru scolds him for being so positive even after remembering everything, and to Yashiro's surprise, Kuru kneels and asks his late master Ichijin for permission to serve a new king. He places his sword on the ground and pledges loyalty to Yashiro, saying he'll now serve him. Yashiro brushes off the ceremony and tells Kuru to get moving, but he gives him a silver aura, officially making him his clansman. Meanwhile, the colorless king, now controlling Kukuri's body, watches the battle between Makoto and Munakata from a distance and excitedly dances around, thinking his plan is working. However, inside him, the voices of the people he previously possessed start pushing back, and soon, Yashiro and Kuru arrive to stop him. The colorless king tries to run, but Kuru blocks his way and pulls out his sword, declaring he's going to end this once and for all. However, just before he strikes, Kukuri's body is freed from the colorless king, but the spirit quickly jumps into Yashiro's body instead. Even so, Yashiro manages to trap the colorless king inside himself and stay in control. He tells Kuru to take Kukuri to safety, since he now has to face Makoto and Munakata alone. At the train station near the school, Mashina and Sumika tell the student council that Kukuri is missing, but they believe she's probably with Yashiro. Meanwhile, Kamamoto and Yada return to the rest of Humar under the bridge. Yada angrily questions why they're not helping Mikoto, so Kusanagi smacks him on the head and tells him to calm down, especially since Anna is staying calm. However, Anna suddenly stands up and turns toward the island, sensing that something's wrong. Over on the Scepter 4 side, Fushimi meets up with his team and talks to Seri about what's happening with the four kings. Back on the island, Yashiro arrives and interrupts the fight between Mikoto and Munakata. Weak from fighting with the colorless king inside him, he tells Mikoto to kill him, because the person who killed Tatsuka is now inside his body. Mikoto thanks him and drives his hand into Yashiro's chest, which causes a huge explosion that spreads across the island, lighting up the sky and shaking the area. As the explosion goes off, Kuru carries the unconscious Kukuri away. She wakes up and seems to remember Kuru and Nico, but not Yashiro, but the fact that she can't recall Yashiro makes her cry. Kuru comforts her and tells her to rest, and as they leave the island, Kukuri looks back and tearfully sees Yashiro's sword of Damocles disappearing in the sky. After the explosion ends, Mikoto warily walks forward and Munakata stands nearby in silence. The two speak a few last words before the glowing orb at the top of Mikoto's sword goes dark, and the huge blade begins to fall. Munakata stabs Mikoto in the chest before the sword can hit, stopping its fall. Mikoto's sword breaks apart into glowing red pieces as he quietly says his final words, and Munakata holds his body for a moment, then walks away to rejoin his team. On the other side of the bridge, Anna suddenly feels that Mikoto is gone. She cries out his name and begins to cry as the rest of Hamara stands in silence, mourning their king. Kamamoto then begins chanting Hamara's motto and the others slowly join him. As they chant, glowing red lights rise from their bodies and float into the sky. Fushimi watches from the bridge as Scepter 4 begins to leave and the symbol also fades into red sparks. Anna watches the lights and tearfully mutters that it's beautiful. That evening, Kuro and Nico go back to the blast site and they find Yashiro's umbrella stuck in the ground. Nico depressingly insists she'll return the umbrella to him, so Kuru tries to gently explain that Yashiro is gone, but he remembers Yashiro once calling himself the immortal king and admits that he might still be alive and admits Yashiro is their king. Later, as the sun sets, a black and white dog and a pink cat leave the school. They cross the bridge toward Tokyo as the dog carries Kuru's sword, and the cat has Yashiro's umbrella on her back. Meanwhile, the rest of Hamare continues to chant to the sky and Kusanagi quietly talks to Mikoto, hoping he can hear them. He tells Mikoto that he was the best king they ever had. And that is it for today. If you enjoyed the recap, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more exciting recaps. Hit the notification bell to stay tuned in for more incredible adventures ahead. Until next time, take care.